Majesties, the Apostolic Team of Africa Leadership Summit, International Board members of Africa-Israel Chamber of Commerce, delegates from South Africa, Botswana, Nigeria, Namibia, Kenya, and the United States of America, Pastor Segon, I hope I pronounce it rightly. Welcome everybody in Jerusalem, and good afternoon. I'm very glad to be here with you, with my colleagues from Mashav, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present Mashav and to get engaged in a conversation with you. And I really would like to make it more a conversational talk than a lecture. A few words about myself. My name is Yuval. I was born here in Israel, not in Jerusalem, in Haifa, 1961. I joined the ministry 25 years ago, and I served in the Czech Republic, in Germany, in Moscow, Russia, and recently, until 3 years ago, in Georgia as ambassador. And I came back, I joined Mashav as deputy head of Mashav. You know the head of Mashav, Ambassador Gil Haskel, who sent his best regards. He was, before that, his last position overseas was ambassador to Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Malawi, I think Seychelles. Right. So that's about myself. One of the speakers before me spoke so nicely about Jerusalem, and two things came into my mind. One is that we have 3 children. 2 of them were born overseas when we were posted abroad in the Czech Republic and in Prague, and then in Berlin in Germany. And we came back. It was 2000. My wife got pregnant again, and we said, we asked ourselves, where do we want to give birth to our 3rd child? Now, in the passports of our daughter and our first son was Prague and then Berlin, and closest to us was a hospital in a town called Petach Tikva. I don't know if you've heard about that. But we said, after Prague and Berlin, it must be Jerusalem. So our youngest son was born here in Jerusalem. This is a personal attachment to this city. But you know what they say about praying here in Jerusalem, why it's so important. Well, today in the age of internet, it's not so much. But earlier, when you had to pay for your phone, why was it so important and so much better to pray in Jerusalem? You know that? You know the story? It's a local call. So, yeah. Unfortunately, WhatsApp. Thank you. Today with WhatsApp and Sky, it all, you know. But anyway, but it's still a good call. It's still a good call. About Mashav, and I don't know how many of you heard about Mashav before. We have brought with us some info materials. If you would need more, we will send more. You can find on the internet. But few words just as an intro. First of all, Mashav was born in Africa, for Africa, with Africa. Exactly 61 years ago, as a matter of fact. Our foreign minister at that time was a lady, Golda Meir. Maybe you have heard about her. Later, she turned to become our first lady prime minister. So far, the only lady prime minister we've had. As lady prime minister, we had another one later on. At that time, David Ben-Gurion, our founding father, was prime minister. She toured Africa a couple of times, west, east, came back with the idea of establishing, first she thought about women leadership, about establishing relations with women leaders that she met, first in Liberia, then in Ghana, then in other countries. And she came back and established in 1961 a center in Haifa. Today it is named after her. It's called Golda Meir Center, or we call it Mount Carmel Training Center. It's still mainly a gender-focused training center. Not only, times have changed, and today with gender or women empowerment, we also do in that center entrepreneurship and innovation, early childhood education, and many other topics. Some of them are related to gender, some of them not necessarily so, but basically this is a gender center. Every second year, we have here in Mount Carmel Training Center, Golda Meir Center, a Women Leaders Conference, which is, by the way, open not only for developing countries, but also for developed countries. Recently, we had it last year, as we celebrated last year our 60th anniversary. I will share some of these albums, Mashav 60, just to give you an impression of those days back. David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, second, here, no, that one. We will leave some copies with you, so you will have the opportunity to go through some of these historic photos. And I would like to read a quote. This one is not from the Bible, but from David Ben-Gurion. And he said, "The principles of mutual assistance and equality should also constitute the basis for international relations between people and must be based on the solidarity of all human beings, derived from fraternity and mutual assistance in every sphere of life, the economic, social, and scientific." There are many more quotes, and since the very early days of Mashav, we are, maybe I should have said that earlier, we are a department within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. All of us, we are trained diplomats. Of course, we work with professionals, but we work under this umbrella, under this roof of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so we work in the context of diplomatic relations. That to say that to some extent we follow interests of the State of Israel. At least we follow interest of friendship between the nations, between the peoples, and I know that everybody here in this room share these ideas and this partnership and friendship. At the same time, despite or with the fact that Mashav was always following to some extent, on the one hand, this interest of the State of Israel, as we do, as people do in all ministries of foreign affairs in your own countries. This is what we do, diplomats. At the same time, Mashav has always had as a leading principle a very Jewish principle which is called in Hebrew Tikkun Olam, which means to make the world better, or to make a better world. There is a quote in Hebrew, it goes, המציל נפש אחת כאילו הציל תיקן את העולם כולו, which is more or less he or she who saved one soul, it is as if he or she saved the whole world. And this principle of making a better world, or making the world better, or sharing, which is a moral principle. This is a no interest game. There are no interests in this game. Is accompanying our work always since our establishment. So there is this balance, or this coexistence of interest of the State of Israel with moral principles. In this case, Jewish moral principles, but I believe that we share it with everybody in this room. Few words about how we work, what we do. I told you about Golda Meir Training Center. Since then, we have established another 2 centers which are owned by Mashav, one in Kibbutz Shfaim, not far from Tel Aviv, dealing with agriculture and water, and another one not far from here, from Jerusalem, dealing with education. And we work with 7 other training centers, all of them here in Israel, in other fields such as healthcare, such as community development, such as cooperative development, renewable energy. We work with 7 other extensions by contract. All in all, we offer here in Israel about 80 to 100 programs in 4 languages, English, Spanish, French, Russian, sometimes Arabic. Unfortunately, these days, not so much. We used to have a much bigger Arabic program in the past. We would love to have it again or more. This depends more on the political situation in this region, and we do believe, and you know that some of the Arab countries are African countries, and I saw the names. We do believe that this is a bridge. This is something which is done for the benefit of the people. This is beyond politics. This is beyond peace and war, strategic issues. Maybe this is the strategic issue number 1, if you think about Egypt. To feed every year, if I'm not wrong, 1 more million people, little people. This is maybe the strategic issue number 1. So why should we not cooperate on that if we have possibilities? Food security or insecurity was the term in one of the presentations. Again, we believe that basically cooperation, development cooperation, is for the sake of people, for the sake of your people, for the sake of my people, for the sake of stability, for the sake of development, for the sake of that our societies will flourish in all respects, economically, socially, spiritually, as we heard. For this, there are some basic needs that we all need: food, water, schools, if you call it a basic need, etc., etc., healthcare, vaccinations, know-how. And we believe that this will do good for the peace, for the between nations, between people here, specifically in our region, but not only in our region. And we are ready to share with our neighbors and with other who are not our neighbors. So we have here in Israel, we offer 80 to 100 programs in 4 languages on these different issues. Of course, we do focus on fields where we believe to have relative advantage. So we would rather do irrigation of vegetable production that we do here in a desert land than raising cocoa or coffee, because we don't do that here in Israel. So we don't have here much advantage, you know, compared maybe with other. Possibly we could share something, but that's not. Same goes for health care, and we do consider and calculate and consult with our experts whether we do have the capabilities and possibilities and the advantage that is needed here to share. But we do focus on these fields: agriculture, food security, water, irrigation, education. Today, more and more technology in education, and again, gender issues, innovation, entrepreneurship, etc. And to some extent also some issues of healthcare, not all issues of healthcare. We don't do cancer, we don't do cardio. We might do to some extent, but we focus on some fields. I'll touch that in a second. All those courses in Israel, they are sponsored by the state of Israel. But the flight, except the flight. The only thing which we don't do is the flight. The stay, it's a 3-week course. It's a full covered stay scholarship. There are no fees, no accommodation, insurance, everything we cover, including some tourism, which is included in the program. The only thing which we don't do is the flight, for 2 reasons. One, budget. You know, if you have to do every year 2,000 to 3,000, some of them are coming from faraway places like Fiji or the Caribbean islands, it's a lot of money. But mainly not the money. Mainly it is something which was in some of the presentation, and this is really, really, really needed everywhere where you do development, sense of ownership. That's important. You don't have sense of ownership, I don't know what you will do when you come back. And I would add more, if I'm allowed, to the financing, some elements of that sense of ownership, some ownership of the receiving. Well, I don't know, I'm hesitating to say receiving, but you know what I mean. Receiving community, some sense of ownership. He or she who has nothing to lose, so to speak, and it's after all, it's your money, it's our money. In our case, it's the citizens' money. All our budget comes from citizens, simple citizens like Adam and myself, and why us? Our wives who are not employees of the state, who are paying taxes. So all of it comes from tax. So it doesn't matter if it comes from tax or it comes from donation, but there has to be some sense of ownership. Overseas, we do the same, only shorter. So we do what we call on-the-spot courses. We do also surveys like the ones that were mentioned here to plan programs, cooperation. To some extent, we do infrastructural projects, but to a little extent. We are not as big as USAID or GIZ or some of the agencies that you might have heard of. So we focus on centers of excellence, centers of demonstrations, and then the main thing is not so much the center itself. It is needed, but the main thing is the human dimension, is the capacity building program which follows, be it a horticulture center of excellence next to Kigali in Rwanda, or be it a healthcare center, ICU, intensive care unit in Togo, in a city called Atakpame, or in Tanzania, in Dodoma, or in Conakry. All of them were established last year. Or be it a neonatal center in Ghana, in Kumasi, etc., etc. Or in Uganda, non-transmitted, I think it's called, diseases. It's not in the capital, but I forgot the name of the city. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the main thing is the capacity building programs that follow. The human capacity building or institutional. And this is where we believe that we are good at. This is that where we see our added value compared with our big friends and brothers like USAID. Last week was here the head of USAID, Administrator Green. He met Prime Minister Netanyahu. He met our minister, and we discussed some programs. And I'm confident that some of these programs will be implemented in Africa. Same goes for our German partners or Canadian partners or others. I mentioned already some cooperations that we have. We also cooperate with UN agencies. Some of them are located in Africa. As you know, there are two agencies which are home in Nairobi, UNEP and Habitat. We work with them, but we also work with the UN agencies that are in New York or in Rome or Geneva or elsewhere, again on fields and issues where we feel that we have something to share and some added value to contribute. One I would say characteristic of Mashav compared with the bigger ones, or our bigger brothers and sisters, USAID, etc., or World Bank, is that we have very short line of decision making. We are small, but we try to be efficient. It doesn't have to go through too many stations. We have already in-house capacities, our training institutions, or those institutions that have already won a tender legally. So we don't have to publish another tender on those issues, or we can decide within minutes on a program. Of course, we need the budget for that, but apart from that, we can very easily tailor a program for a country or for a region and ahead with it. And this is, if I may, an advice to every organization which is limited on cash, but would like to make impact. Make it short, make it very simple, make it efficient, not too many bureaucratic processes. And the other side of the coin is that we are what we call boots on the ground. You know, Obama didn't like the boots on the ground. We like the boots on the ground. We would like to be out there, no tie, no suit, boots on the ground, like really, really out there. This is my expectation from every Mashav ambassador. By the way, we work via our embassies, so in every case or interest from your side, any of you, to establish contacts in the places where you are for your communities, please be in contact with the local or resident or non-resident Israeli ambassador or embassy which is closest to you, and talk to them. We are a demand-driven organization. We don't come with ideas. We are demand-driven. We may exchange, but we don't, just think here in Jerusalem what might be good for somebody. And we believe strongly in the community. Strongly. This is a word. If there was a word in all the presentations which came mostly, I think this is community. Because again, Pastor, we believe, as you said, that we don't know better than the community itself. Even if you know some technicalities on irrigation or how to do mango or how to do, I don't know what, a little better on education, on mortality of children or mothers, it has always to be embedded and in the context of the community. For the ownership, this is one thing, but also and responsibility, and to take it further, and it is no matter what in a context, in a local context. We don't know the local context. We will never know as much as the people know. So we need the people who will transform or transmit or mediate the technical know-how, which you can maybe follow in the internet if it's good enough, if it's detailed enough, to the people. So boots on the ground, being really, really out there, and making this chain of decision-making, money, etc., very, very short. For us, it's crucial because we are so small, but it's also a big advantage that makes us, I hope, make us a good partner for some of the other agencies. So some examples I mentioned, maybe I'll mention one or two more examples from Africa, for Africa. Africa has always been at the core of our interest. This is most of our budget, most of our interest, most of our time. When we are overseas, we are mainly in Africa, much less so in South America, Latin America, or Asia, or other developing countries, and this is for many good reasons, but mainly for the friendship and partnership. One project which we are to finalize this year or next year is avocado nurseries in Ethiopia. Very interesting project where from scratch from no avocado, except the ones who grew nature, like from nature, from itself. In the jungle, they grow perfectly well in the climate of Ethiopia and in many other countries. We established together with the government, Ministry of Agriculture, and together with USAID, 6 avocado nurseries that produces today almost 500,000 seedlings every year, which are being then transplanted. It's thousands of hectares. The project has already started to export avocado, and so to make impact on jobs, on food security, on cash flow, dollars or euros. I don't know what's the cash, but anyway. And what is even more important or interesting is that the private sector already follows, because we cannot lead. We can just give the ignition or the start or the stimulation. But then I met an investor there. He happens to be an Israeli in Ethiopia, not far from Addis Abeba. And by next year, he will double the production. He himself, with his facility, he will double the amount of seedlings that we do. And this shows that the private sector already has not only interest, but trust in this as a new sector, a sector with added value compared with TEF, TEF, which is a strong impact and benefit for the economy, for the agriculture. There are many examples like this. It has to make real impact on people's life, not government's life. I agree. I don't remember which of the speakers spoke about that. Of course we have to work. We all have to work with the governments. And some of the things will always be by the government, regulation, sanitation, etc., financing, prioritization, and to some extent even giving it a push, from above, like the four. I don't know if there are people from Kenya here. The president speaks about. There are other people from Kenya here, from Nairobi. On their way, they will get here. There are the four big ones of President Kenyatta. Every president has his own priorities, so of course you have to respond with this. To some extent, we do humanitarian assistance, but we do it only on cases such as mud slide, which happened, I believe, 2 years ago that was in Sierra Leone, or recently Mozambique, where he contributed water filtering Israeli technologies. But again, we do it with pleasure, and if by the way we also support some Israeli technology, they say in German umso besser, the better, for the better. But that's not the main. That's not the hardcore of Mashav. Again, the hardcore, what we know how to do, where we believe that we are strong at, is the capacity building of the people that can then train other people. I'm confident. I traveled to Africa many times in the last 2.5 years since I joined Mashav. I met many people and spoke to many people, and I'm confident in the abilities and capabilities of the continent. It's a huge continent with huge human resources. Not only nature, of course, natural resources, you know better, but human resources, young people, younger generation, who are not waiting. They are not waiting for line telephone to come to their remote village. They go internet, or they go, etc. And that potential, I'm sure, can be used and will be used. We will be happy, just to closing remark from our side, to discuss with you in your as an organization or with the communities, persons to discuss with you your ideas, initiative, to support you along this process of putting together a development agency, sharing from our humble experience, I would say, having seminars together or possibly sending experts, of course inviting people to take part in our courses here or visit Mashav facilities, centers of excellence, wherever you are to see what good could be copied or what are the best ways to cooperate. So thank you again for the invitation. I wish you a very good stay here in Jerusalem, but not only in Jerusalem. I was born in Haifa. I hope you will go there. And thank you very much. Thank you.
What has been your experience of the influence of urbanization in terms of community development? Because, I mean, we see communities, or rural communities in particular, as important for sustaining, meaningful rural livelihoods in Africa. But we also know that we are one of the most rapidly urbanizing continents. What has been your experience, and how do you think urbanization is impacting rural communities from your experience as an agency?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. On how to engage, it's a simple procedure. You are yourself from Nigeria, if I'm not wrong, right? But it's the same answer for people from other countries who are here with us. In Nigeria, we have an embassy, of course, in Lagos, ambassador, or deputy ambassador. The starting point would be to pay them a visit or invite them to pay a visit to wherever your community is, and to share with them some info about the community, about your needs, and about your ideas. They will be able to share with you direct and immediate information about coming programs here in Israel, in those training centers that we have, and about coming programs in the coming months. It's a very simple procedure, mechanism of application, that we have a form that has to be distributed and comes back to us, and we process it, and we give the embassy, in this case in Lagos, an answer. These and these candidates are approved. Unfortunately, that candidate not this time. And then follow these and these instructions. That goes for sending people here, and we have had many people from all your countries here in different programs that we publish. By the way, all the programs are also online on the Mashav site, so just Mashav, you will find the programs, the coming programs. So that's a very simple procedure. If it is about developing something which goes beyond sending people here, say water treatment for the community, or vegetable production, or education, early childhood education, again, the best opening would be to discuss it with the ambassador, with the embassy on the ground, to share some information. What are the specific needs, where it comes from, why it's important, what's the priority compared with maybe other fields or needs, who are the other organizations that are engaged, or financing mechanism, and then we do very similar to a process which was described here before. Sometimes we send an appraisal team, or sometimes we do it by correspondence, that we But the bottom line and the end result should be a program that we have a program, sometimes for 1 year, sometimes for 3 years. Sometimes we send people for longer times to be on the ground. Sometimes it's just short, commuting that we do. But the main thing is that there is a real curricula that we try to follow. We did that in Kenya. Again, sorry for being so short of examples right now, but the things which comes into my mind on sustainability, education on sustainability. So heads of schools, masters came here, or our trainers went there to the villages and showed practical ways how to make life in the community, in the school, more sustainable, like water collecting or things like that. Very simple, very cheap, practically no money engaged here. But then you teach from very young age students to do things which are good for the environment, good for the community and for the sustainability. So these are basically the ways how to engage. Of course, we are always open to engagement with the government or with local. Sometimes some of the countries are very big, so with a local government, we are very happy. We are very happy, be it municipalities or the majesties, the kings. We do that. We do that in Ghana. Recently, our ambassador met there, one of the kings in the area of Kumasi, which gave his patronage since many years to a project that we do on child and mother mortality. And the program is very successful in some hospitals, so we are very happy to engage with you. On rural development is a big issue. It's very different from place to place. Here in Israel, we face I don't know how to call it, an upside down or a negative picture, because in many places, people go away from rural places to the big cities where there is more work, where the rural places stay empty. Younger generation don't want to work, to take over the agriculture, the land, etc., etc. They want to, I don't know, to make money. Or here there is a phenomenon, maybe because Israel is so small, that people go out of the big cities and sit in villages, but they live there. They don't work the land. So it's not rural in this sense. But what I'm gaining out of this, and what I'm also gaining from my experience in other places, is you have to make it exciting for the people. You have to make it exciting. I'll give you an example here from Israel from, I think 10, 15 years ago, I don't recall exactly. Until then, young people, like children, wanted to be football player or a general or a pilot or something like that. It's still there. But then came the first Israeli exit, which was called ICQ. It's an early version of Messenger, of WhatsApp or something like that. 4 very young guys, they were barely 18, 19, who made overnight with the sale of their company, I think it was $400 million, 4 young people. A lot of money, and today I think such young, less young, more young people in Israel, it's in the billions already, like Mobileye or other things you may have heard of. Also WhatsApp, I think. Waze. And that's the new, the new drive. You ask today, the people age of my sons, one of them is 18, one of them is 15, what would they like to become? So yes, you may get, my sons, they may tell you a pianist or a basketball player, but at the same time, many of the young people would like to become entrepreneurs or you know, to establish something like the next WhatsApp or something like that, and go big and sell it to Microsoft or to I don't know what. It must not be innovation. It must not be telephone apps, or it can be anything. It can be anything, but it has to be promoted, and there is a place here for the leaders in the community. Think about, for example, what President Obama did for Twitter, because he was a freak. You know, when he became president, there were many articles that his cellular was taken from him, you know, his BlackBerry, blah, 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 all this. You are a leader, a word from a leader who is engaged, be it football, be it healthcare, be it, you know, what's important for your community, be it education, but to make it attractive, to make it, excuse me the word, sexy. You know, if the young people think this is what, that's the thing for us, then it's only a matter of time that the first development will come and will make more people. And in the case of rural development, it is staying, first it's staying there, then it's working for the rural areas, then it's making more invention or tools for rural development. Everywhere it will be related to the community. So I don't know if it's a good answer, but that was my answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was in Kenya recently, and I appreciate Kenya for good relationship that they have cultivated since the days of the first president, Jomo Kenyatta, with Israel, and on the route to Entebbe raid, you know, all of those things that happened there. I really appreciate that, and I learned a lot from that. But recently, something that we don't want to see on the African continent again happened in Kenya, where 5 billion Kenyan shillings project sponsored by the Israeli government, between government to government, actually has gone to complete waste. The people just took the money, and the money has disappeared. Now, that's a lot of money. And it's not the first time it's happening in Africa, but this recent example really scared me. And it did not just scare me, it underscores for me the need for an agency like the Africa Agency, where the African people can hold their own people accountable for investment, for partnership, and to make sure that development takes place. So this is, for me, one of the main remedies that the Africa Agency brings to the table. Say, for example, if that a project was taking place in a community where there are responsible elders and leadership, and a government were to allow 5 billion to go to waste, they know that that government is going to collapse, because the people are going to tell their people, that government, we will not vote for it next time, because what should have been our development money, what should have translated into the development of our community, has gone to waste. So why I'm saying this is because I want to encourage us as various communities from different parts of Africa to work with the Africa Agency, to partner with the Mashaf, and to partner with other development organizations, so that we do not allow such waste, so that we can create an internal system to hold ourselves accountable so that we do not continue to give a bad name to a good continent. Thank you. That's my.
I'm really impressed by the presentations, and I'm happy that the people want to work directly with the people concerned. The donor agencies and the development partners want to work with the people that are affected. In the past, we have projects from European Union, we have projects from the World Bank targeted towards rural development. Most of these funds went to the wrong places, to the wrong hands. I had the privilege of being director for technical services for a World Bank-assisted project. And for years, we were surprised that most of the money and materials just went to government officials. Vehicles that were bought for projects were distributed by commissioners, some given to their wives, to take their children to school and whatever. But I was happy when my friend told me that this time around, this agency is ready to work with community leaders who cannot run anywhere. As kings, we reside there permanently. We are not politicians who will garner the votes, be in government, do whatever they want to do, and run away. So we, as traditional rulers, we have nowhere to run to. And we have the problems staring us in the face. And therefore, we are excited when we get a foreign helper who is not, we are not saying you are not going to involve government, just for formalizing procedure and whatever, but holding the leaders of the communities and their people responsible. In fact, our own people have a lot of confidence in us, more than they have in government. Why? Because we don't go anywhere. If you have a councillor or a member of assembly or something, once they are voted for, they leave their rural community and live in big cities. So the impact on the people who really need the help was always very minimal. So we would be happy if we can key in into this kind of program, especially coming from Israel. Israel as a nation had learned to hold its destiny in its own hands. All the famous scientists, they boast of in other countries, most of them are Israelis. So we are very happy to have a link with Israeli agencies like this. We know we are going to have good results, and want to promise that as much as possible, as much as the laws of the land will allow us, we are going to ensure that whatever partnership you have with us, we have results now, and we have continuity. I thank you.